Beretta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Can you talk a little bit about Peyton and the process that went into his decision to play for you, and the challenges that that presents for a young man playing for his dad? I know he's dealt with some of that, I'm sure, at the high school level, just having his dad be Ben McCollum. And then what is his role? What do you expect him to actually contribute to this program, this team this year?
Yeah, the first part, so he was recruited, and initially our whole deal was that he wasn't going to play for me. You know, that was always kind of the thing. He did get recruited, you know, mostly low major stuff. He didn't post him because it's just not my style, and it's not his. And so, but then naturally it also hurt his recruitment. You know, I think his junior year he was being recruited when I was at Division II, and then we got Drake, and then all of a sudden some of those schools that were calling didn't call anymore, specific to just because they assumed that he was going to play for me. But he's not going to. Well, then he was going to play at Drake. And then obviously I got this job, so at that point it became pretty late. You know, it's fun. It is. I think that probably the hardest thing for him is, I've always found, like, there's two types of parents. There's the parents that their kid can do no wrong, and then there's sometimes the parents that their kid can do no right. Sometimes I probably trend on the second of those two, and so probably my staff is a little more on the left side, if that makes sense. He's been great in practice, honestly, above. I expected him to play at some point. You know, he's even above where I thought he was, just because he's so good defensively, and he understands that there always is going to be like a lead guard, you know, and that was the hardest position for us to recruit, was somebody to play with Bennett, because people just, you know, thought Bennett was going to have the ball too much or whatever, and so now you have that position that, not necessarily this year, but into the future, where you've got a guy that'll defend, you got a guy that'll compete. He was voted our hardest worker in the preseason, all those different things. So it's been fun. When I see him at practice, though, I don't, you know, it's your son, but you don't like treat it like that. I think that would be unfair to him both ways. After the fact, it's kind of nice, and I think my wife's really jealous. She's like, well, I used to see him all the time, and you didn't get to see him, and now you get to see him every day. I said, yeah, but it's a little different in practice, because I'm not as nice there.
Madison Rancic, the Gazette. I wanted to ask, with the players that followed you from Drake to here, how have you kind of used them as ways to be a leader and help introduce some of the new transfer players that haven't worked with you one-on-one in season before, to get them accustomed to the culture, and then also to help instill a lot of the things that you want to build around this program? Yeah,
that's been probably the trickiest thing, is when we came to Drake, and I know everybody wants to compare the two, and so I'll just do it anyway. When we came to Drake and we brought 4 players, 3 of those players, 2 of them had played for me for 5 years. That was their 5th year. 1 of them for 6. So they coached the team, essentially, right? And you know, I felt like I did a good job of coaching. But they were able to really instill that. We have 1 that was with me for 4 years, and then we have a bunch that were there for 1 year that were led by 3 others, and then Bennett obviously as well. And so they've taught them some of the effort that needs to happen. I want to challenge them to coach more, to coach the team a little bit more from that effort, from that toughness standpoint, from, hey, you need to be here, you need to be there, rather than, you know, like we had a great leader last year named Daniel Abreu. Daniel Abreu would just boom, 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 he'd organize everything. It's like, well, he's not walking through the doors here, right? And so we need somebody else to step up and be a leader in those. But as far as like understanding me, understanding all that stuff, they've done a great job as far as that goes.
Right. Hey Ben, Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Insider again. Wanted to ask about the 25 class between Trevin, Tate, and now Trey, who reclassified. Is your expectations that they play soon? Is it like something that they come along throughout the season? What are your expectations for them?
Yeah, they're pretty good. Like, that class is pretty good. We're pretty excited about them. I think we've got some steals in that class, if you will. You know, Trevin, obviously 6'11", can do so many different things. Tate, you know, 6'7", can shoot, can finish. Whether or not they play, you know, the hopes are that eventually they can, you know, this season. You know, if not all of them, you know, a couple of them. I think when you bring freshmen into the fold, you have to be a little bit careful, because if you just throw them out there, you know, you can throw them out there in scrimmages and they're going to make 10,000 mistakes, and then you can just kind of let them play through the mistake. But in a game, they're not going to really be allowed to play through that mistake, if that makes sense. And if you pull them quickly, you're going to shatter their confidence, because you got to allow freshmen to play through mistakes, in my mind. And so once they get to a point where we feel like, okay, these guys are ready, and if they make one mistake, we're not going to yank them, then that's probably the time that they'll stay in the game consistently. But all three of them have been fantastic, and you know, even better than we expected.
Colin in the back.
Ben, Colin Davies, KCRG. What is the biggest difference that you noticed? You had that one off season as Drake, and now you had this whole summer and fall to get ready. What is the biggest difference here at Iowa that you're seeing from other years in your career in the preparation to the season?
Like just the preparation itself?
Yes.
You know, I think anytime you move up levels, there's more distractions. It's probably what it is. Not for me necessarily. It doesn't really distract me a whole lot. But as far as like the players themselves, because it's difficult to hide from it. And so you have to understand, you know, what it actually is, and do I value somebody's opinion in regards to this? Because, you know, there's still 18 to 22, 23-year-olds that are fairly sensitive to things. And so that would probably be the biggest difference. And expectations. You know, I think that there's a natural expectation that you're just going to go win the Big Ten, and it's just going to show up, because that's what we did at Missouri Valley, you know, at the Missouri Valley Conference. And so I'm not saying we're not going to compete, and I'm not saying we're not going to be there or be good, but it is hard to be good, and that's where I think sometimes when you have those distractions, sometimes maybe your guys don't understand, like, no, it's actually supposed to be hard, it's supposed to be a struggle. And that's the cool part about being able to win championships. It's not the actual championship itself. That's great, but it's the struggle and the fight to be able to get to that level. And so you have to avoid some of those distractions to be able to do that.
Shannon.
Hey Coach, Shannon Earhart, KCCI, all the way back here. Who's impressed you the most?
I would say at this point, Trevin. I mean, Trevin's been great. He's really gotten himself into shape. He can really pass it. The game slows down for him. He can shoot. Yesterday, I think it was 2 for 2 or 3 for 3 from 3. You know, just does a lot of good things. Great attitude. That's probably even one of the more overwhelming things that I didn't expect. You know, guys are winners. They're naturally going to win. But his attitude is through the roof. You know, and so he's been great in the preseason.
I have time for a few more, Coach. We'll go 4 more. David.
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Ben, when it comes to like the psychological aspect of coaching players, some guys respond by, you know, getting yelled at, screaming in their face. Other guys will kind of go back in a shell if they do that. I guess, how long does it take for you to kind of realize how to individually coach your players? And do you try to recruit guys with the same attitude to minimize the actual, that part of it? Or I guess, again, how long would it take you to kind of really understand how to coach certain guys and teams?
Yeah, it doesn't take long to figure out a personality. You know, whether it's, I think that's something that as a coach you naturally have to study. I had a stepfather that was a narcotics officer, so he would investigate me every second, and then I've got a mom that's a judge, so I probably come by it just by them, because he just makes quick reads and kind of figures it out, and my mom was very similar in respect to that. I think how long it takes to get out of them what you want out of them based on how you coach them is the tricky part, because some people aren't going to develop as quickly as others, and some teams aren't going to develop as quickly as others. And so, you know, some need to solution find, you know, for themselves, and then some need a little bit more structure. And so everybody is pretty unique. I think the big thing, the way my style is I'm fairly intense, and so I need to make sure that I'm careful in regards to that I don't necessarily use a ton of fear. but still add the intensity to it. And so what I mean by that is you try to tell guys what to do rather than what not to do. And so if you can consistently, hey, we'd like you to do this rather than don't take that shot, a lot of times it eliminates those weaknesses, but it takes more time to do it that way. Fear coaches probably get a little bit more results earlier in the season, and then late in the season, those same fear coaches, you'll see those are the teams that finish 2-8, and we'd like to finish 8-2. So that's our style. Well, I shouldn't say 2. I don't like to say 2. That's 2 where you're going to lose. That was dumb.